Very much, Joe. I tell you, that's I think spend a lot of time with is a great way to say it. And if you hung out around Bresh, at least I was really lucky. There were times when we were around crowds, but there were a lot of times when it was just the two of us. And somewhere in his vast collection of stuff, which we're still going through, there's a video that I'd be playing stuff, and he said, "Well, sit here and let me get a video of that." I mean, you guys all know that you're a part of his video archive. If you ever saw him, he turned around and asked you a question and got some video of it. And I know there was the other thing that was a big part of Tom's musical life, the chunk of it that we knew about, which is from his Nashville years forward, is he was big on going over to France and hanging out with Marcel Dadis, and as he called them, the Frenchies. And he was very proud of having been made a wine lord at two different wineries. So there were those stories. And then around town, he just had that camera with him all the time. I'm really anxious to see what happens when we go and edit some of this footage and put it together. So those of us who knew him, the other thing you know about Bresh is the informality is like way beyond. That's a way understatement, because he basically was documenting everything but putting it in a shoebox. So there's going to have to be some serious sorting going on to make sense of the great legacy that he left us. Of course, there are certain things we see on YouTube, and he had a Facebook channel and so forth. Those things are kind of all out there. But it's amazing what else, because I know if he'd sat down and got video of me around the house, he got video of all of us somewhere. Somebody's just going to have to go through and make sense of it. I remember when I had Marcel Dadi had died in that plane crash, and I was halfway through writing a tune, which I was later going to call Cafe of Dreams for Marcel. So I started playing in the first, wait a minute, sit over here, And so he got video of me halfway through writing Cafe of Dreams for Marcel. And he had footage of us when we were in France, and he assembled a little something I've never seen except that time at his house. And it was me sitting on the stool playing half of Cafe of Dreams, and he edited in some footage of me and Marcel in France. Somebody put on a Tennessee waltz, and Marcel stepped up like this, and so he and I embraced and danced around the room to the Tennessee waltz. And he took the Tennessee waltz out and put in video of Marcel and I dancing and me playing Cafe of Dreams. Now, I saw it that day at his house. I have no idea where it is now. And I guarantee you, every one of us has got some little something where we hung around Bresh, and he documented it, put titles on, and ended it with Bresh Digital TV, So, and the thing that was the most amazing to him, for me, as me, John, and him, Tom, was we had interests that really overlapped. The music stuff, the computer stuff, the video stuff, the traveling around the world stuff. So there was always something for us to do. Well, also Mexican food, He was a little heavier on the margarita side than I was, but we were in 100% agreement on the enchiladas, So there's probably some video and some snapshots somewhere of us at a Mexican restaurant, having some chow. So one time, and this was after Chad had had a cancer scare, and so he was not going to go to France. We had all been going over to France for Marcel's big festival that he would have. And so I was going to go. So I told Chad, I said, well, since you're not going to go, why don't you show me a tune? And I'll learn the tune, and then I'll teach the French guys the tune, and this can be, a gift from you to the French guys. So Chet says, well, I wrote one last night. And he did. He had just written Happy Again. And he was still trying to decide whether to call Happy Again or Lucky Again, because he had just gotten a good report from the cancer doctor. And, Mr. Lucky was one that Jerry Reed wrote for him. The time he had first time he had a cancer scare. So this one was going to be Lucky Again, was chapter 2 of Mr. Lucky. So he sits down and starts to play it for me, and he does this. And he can't remember how it goes. He'd just written it last night. So he calls Leona, and she plays the tape on the kitchen table, And, oh, okay, yes. So then he sits down and teaches me how to play Happy Again. And I don't remember exactly what he showed me that day, but I do remember him saying, in the middle it starts getting slower and then it comes to a stop. And what he meant by that was the way he was using his thumb. It's like, I'm happy again, oh, so happy again, da-da-da-dee-dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee. It's the way he wrote it. Da-da-da-dee-dee-dee, da-da-da-dee-dee-dee, da-da-da-dee-dee. His thumb would pick back up. So as he played it for me that first time, the thumb had different times. It was always a key part of what was going on. Let me see if I can almost remember what it was. Yeah, there it is. Here it is. Very un-Bresh-like, right, And so I learned the tune, and I go over to France, and I tell the French guys, there was always somebody there to translate what I said from my excellent English into to avoid my crappy French, As Marcel put it one time, John, it is not necessary for you to speak French. I think he was pleading in his own way, So I let somebody translate and introduce, and I told him, I said, tell everybody that I've got a new Chet Atkins tune that Chet is sending over as a gift, and I'm the bearer of the gift. Well, so Bresh, immediately grabs his camera and videotapes me playing Happy Again for the French guys. And maybe, 2 or 3 months later, he plays it for me. And it doesn't sound like me playing Chet's tune anymore. It sounds like Bresh playing Chet's tune. Now, the other thing to know is that Chet, at this point, forgets the tune. So what's going to happen is, over about a 2-year period, a tune that travels in my hands across the ocean to Bresh's video camera, to Bresh's fingers, and now Bresh can play Happy Again, but now it sounds like Bresh, honking the whole time. And so now I think they're back in the recording studio, and they're doing a Merle Travis tribute record. So Bresh is there, Chet is there, a bunch of people are playing a tune. And Bresh starts playing Happy Again. And Chet turns around and said, whoa, how'd you learn that? And Bresh says, you ready? I wrote it. Oh, the hell you did? And then he said, show me what you're doing. I like the way you're doing it. So Bresh played it again. He said, make me a tape. I want to steal some ideas from you. So now this tune that starts off being, from the kitchen table to me, to France, back to Bresh, and now Bresh is teaching Chet how to play Happy Again 2 years later. And so then a couple weeks go by, and Chet said, I lost that cassette. Can you make me another cassette? Oh, yeah, I'll do that. So Bresh makes him another cassette. And several weeks go by, and Chet says, you're not going to believe this. I know that cassette's somewhere in my desk, and I can't find it. So Bresh makes Chet a third tape. He said, play it on electric. I bet it would sound good on electric, So now Bresh records Happy Again for Chet on an electric guitar, and now Chet's got the third tape. And he learns it, and he records it. It's on that album, Almost Alone. Is that the record it's the first place we see Happy Again from Chet. And by then, it's not the same tune that he wrote and showed me, and the phone call in the kitchen, all that stuff. It's changed, and it sounds a lot like Bresh now. So when you hear Happy Again, you're hearing a collaboration of sorts. The arrangement is definitely modified and travels all around the world before it ends up back in Chet's basement. And then later, Chet tells Bresh one more story, which is, when I kept asking you to make me several tapes of Happy Again? Yeah, he said, I didn't lose those tapes. I just wanted to hear what else you would do with it. So, and to me, that the whole story is so Bresh-like. It's him doing what he does, but it's also him interacting with all of us, and it's very much like what it was like to hang around Bresh and just to be involved in his life. And all, like I say, all of us who were around here and saw him, we're somewhere on videotape, you know, in his archive. Some of it you've seen pop up on YouTube. Some of it is still to be discovered. I think, how many of you had food with Bresh at the Waffle House, right? You got a video of that? Yeah. Bresh with Mexican food and margaritas. Yeah, you know. So it's one of those things where it's hard to imagine daily life without being able to call up Bresh and hang out with him. And to be here and to walk around Paradise Park again, you know, he really, Ghost of Bresh is all over the place. Back here in the green room, I'm watching Evan Twitty sing The Bresh Man Strikes Again, and Bresh with his listening with his video camera going, captures it, you know. And so we have video of that amazing moment. The other thing that happened is probably, I guess it's been almost 2 years now, he starts to have problems, and it's what it turns out what he's got is cancer of the esophagus. So he's having trouble swallowing and eating and starting to lose weight and all that. My singing voice is going south on me. So at this point, a lot of us are going over to take food to Bresh, taking care of him. You know, there are people who all went over there and had hot dogs or cookies or something with Bresh. Anybody here? I know that Julie and Richard Smith were doing a lot of stuff, and Carol Garvin was over there, and Jack Clayton was driving him back and forth to the doctor. So all of us were doing something to kind of help him hold it together. And at one point, we had a GoFundMe to help raise, to pay for all the medical bills. And then we were at Richard Smith's studio one day. I would say a dozen of us got together and did live video from Richard's studio. And Bresh was sitting out in the control room watching us essentially put on a concert to raise money to look after his medical bills. And what I'd like to do right now is kind of recreate a moment where it was my turn to step up to the microphone. And what I did is I told Bresh, I said, I'd like to sing you a love song. And the room got real quiet. I said, we're about to find out something we didn't know before, you know? No. And so what I did was, I did this. I'm gonna turn my guitar down a bit so I can hear my singing voice. And whoa, right in between. So this is the love song I did for Bresh that day. If I were a gorilla, la 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 la, I'd eat me a banana, na 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 na. I'd live in a treehouse, I'd swing on a vine. One thing is sure, I would love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. And if I were a tuba, ba 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 ba, all I do is pa 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 pa. I would take a big breath, march in a band. One thing is sure, I would love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. 'Cause it don't matter to me, whatever you happen to be. An eagle, an onion, a pig, or a grape. As long as you're you, I will love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. And if I were a spaceship, bip, 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 I would take a long trip, rip, 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 rip. I would circle the planets and head for the stars. Then I'd come home, 'cause I love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. And if I were a daisy, zazee, you'd still be my baby, baby. I would pull all my petals out one at a time and always come up with I love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. 'Cause it don't matter to me, whatever you happen to be. A beagle, a grunion, a pig, or an ape. As long as you're you, I will love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Boom, boom. And I'll tell you something funny. I'd always thought of that as a children's song, you know, because I wrote it with my son when he was little. And I looked, and all of a sudden I realized it really is a love song, you know. And I looked out there, and Bresh, How many times you guys made Bresh cry? Rare, right? And I got him going that night. I sang a love song for him. And man, I'm so grateful that I took that moment to do that song for Bresh. And I'm really grateful that we're gathered here together to do stories and music in honor and recognition and celebration of our pal, Thom Bresh. Thanks.
Thank you, John. That was a perfect way to get this started off, and that is going to lead us into the next person I'm going to call out. John was talking about, of course, the French connection there with Tom. I'm going to call to the stage Mr. Tanner Duckworth to take us a little further on that journey.
Thank you. Good to be here today honoring our hero and friend Tom Bresh. Joe was talking about when Bresh went over to France. I will play a couple of tunes that were inspired by that time. This first one is a favorite of mine called Vermilion. And the coffee is still kicking in, so let's see if I can get through this. Thank you. It's one of my favorites. This is another one that I've played a lot, not only in tribute to Bresh, but also to our friend Evan Twitty. This is Sidewalks of Bordeaux. French girls say oui, oui. Thank you very much. We love you, Bresh and Evan Twitty.
Great job, Tanner. I will go ahead and say what Tom would say now. These young guys, he said, I love them, but I hate them. I want to break their fingers. No, we're so thrilled to have people like Tanner and some of the others that you're going to see carrying on Bresh's legacy. And I'll mention again Evan Twitty, who we lost not very long ago as well. He was such an understudy of Tom, and we want to pay a little bit of a tribute to him today as well, because I know Tom would want that done also. So we've talked about people who influence people, and people who Tom was influenced by, and people who also listened to Tom and had a great respect for what he did as an artist. And one of those also was Chet Atkins. This style would not be what it was without Merle Travis, Chet Atkins, and then even going back to Mose Rager, Kennedy Jones, and others. And, that's what was so special to Tom about, obviously, Muhlenberg County and, the building named after Merle Travis, of course. I want to focus a little more on that Chet Atkins side of that right now as I bring out our next performer, Mr. Paul Mosley, who does a wonderful Chet Atkins imitation. I think he's changing gears on me, but that's okay.
Yeah, I switched gears on him. He thought I was going to play my electric guitar, and I'm playing this one. Anyway, well, what we got going on here? Yeah, nice job. That's my sound effects, I was 1990 when I was in the contest and won. Bresh came to the concert that night and played. It's the first time I ever got to see him in person. I heard Chet had him on a program and introduced him. I think it was an Austin City Limits deal. And he said, this is a guitar player that needs to be heard, and he introduced Thom Bresh. And he started picking, and I thought, golly, he sounds just exactly like Merle Travis. And boy, that got me, it really took a hold on me. Never dreamed I'd get to meet him and all. After I got to meet him and all that and see him, and then we became friends. We rarely ever got to be around one another. But one thing he told me about a year before he passed away, out in the hallway at the Chet convention. Of course, everybody, Tom had a side of him that I don't know how to say it without it sounding harsh, but if he didn't like the sound he was getting or something, he kind of sternly told him, I don't like it. You do this, and all that. But anyway, out in the hallway, he was talking about his throat cancer and all that. And we were standing there talking. He said, I just can't get over all the love that all the people are showing me since I'm sick. Said, I have, well, he had a different word for it, but I have peeved everybody off, I'll say. He said, over the years, and I just can't get over how much love I'm receiving, for that. And I said, well, they love you for your art and all that, and anyway, that was a special moment to be with him. But when I heard Tom pick, I thought, Merle Travis, never dreamed ever I'd ever get to meet him and all that. But I'm gonna pick a couple little short tunes in honor of him, and everybody's probably done heard them all. But I'm gonna do a little bit of the guitar rag and the 9-pound hammer. Well, you can tell I hadn't played this morning for a while. Yeah, thank you. You have a graceful heart to say that. Yeah. Anyway.
thank you, Paul Mosley. Paul also has been our stagehand throughout the weekend as well, so we appreciate that. He's going to come back out in a second and I think give me a hand. We're going to continue on down this direction we're going right now in the very traditional vein with two other folks who thought a lot of Tom. He loved to hear him perform, all the way from New York, Al and Kathy Bain.
You're going to plug him in?
We're going to play it. Does you want a mic or?
Doesn't matter. Whatever works best.
Whatever is good for you, sir.
Well, why don't we just use a mic?
Hey, there you go.
All right, we got an extra one?
Not so that
Okay, then we'll plug in. I guess we'll plug in.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bain. Yay! I met Tom, we had a booth at Fanfare in Nashville for, I don't know, 14, 15 years or something like that. And Al Bain Fan Club, and people would travel with us down to Nashville, and a lot of promotion and stuff. Well, you've heard all that before. But I met Tom. Girls, do you remember the picture of Tom out there where he's so handsome and thin and lovely? And that's what he looked like when I met him. And little did I know I was going to meet him further on because of the Merle stuff. And he was there with a booth and promotions. And I have to tell you, girls, he was the best smelling man I ever smelled. Thank you. You know, I couldn't wait to, when they said Tom Bresh is going to be here, I'd say, I know I'm going to get a hug. Because I would walk up to him, he'd grab a hold, he'd squeeze, and I would lean in and say, gosh, you smell good. That was our thing.
I never did that.
No, and Al doesn't smell so great.
I was never close with Tom, but I had a great appreciation for his talent and his charisma.
Oh, my.
He could control the stage and control the audience, and that's something that...
And he could say the most outrageous stuff and get away with it, and that was my hero. I try so hard to do that. And
she does.
And I do. But I didn't want to be here doing this. I wanted him to survive, but I didn't want him to be ill. So, I missed the smell. He really smelled good. And I want to apologize.
I showered today.
I took a tumble last night in the dark, and so.
The truth of the matter is, I was practicing something, and she said, "You're not playing it right." So I backhanded her. Are you ready?
Don't make me laugh too much. And I had a doctor. Oh, girls, it was great. As soon as you fall down, find the nearest gynecologist. It's really great. This is a song I learned when they told me I might have cancer in 1996 and had to have surgery. And I did not have cancer. I was so grateful. I said, I had to take a lot of time off from work, and I said, you know what, God, you get me well. You get me well, and I'll do whatever you want after that. And it wasn't too long before we were traveling more and doing more stuff. I thought about a divorce, but not yet.
There was a lot of that going around.
I've got a home so much better waiting for me over there. I've got a friend I can lean on. I feel stronger just knowing that he cares. I've got a fire, I keep it burning. I've got a light, gonna let it shine. Got me a prayer wheel, I'll keep it turning. I believe we'll be together, hallelujah, when we meet on the other side. There'll be a day of rejoicing, it will last forever over there, over there. The choice is yours and you can take it if you want to live forever over there, over there. There'll be no crying, no more dying. All God's children will be satisfied. I believe we'll be together, hallelujah, when we meet on the other side. He gave you love now for your brother. He gave you a light, why don't you let it shine? He gave you a song, keep on singing. You'll be known by the songs that you sing. You've got a fire, just keep it burning. You've got a light, why don't you let it shine? Got you a prayer wheel, just keep it turning. I believe we'll be together, hallelujah, when we meet on the other side. There'll be a day of rejoicing, it will last forever over there, over there. The choice is yours and you can take it if you want to live forever over there, over there. There'll be no crying, no more dying. All God's children will be satisfied. I believe we'll be together, hallelujah, when we meet on the other side. I believe we'll be together, hallelujah, when we meet on the other side. Thank you, thank you. Next time I come, I'm bringing a different accompanist.
Well, I've been grooming a new blonde bass player. She's
Yes.
quite a bit younger. And they say she'll never fill her shoes, and that's true. She has much smaller feet. So,
It's your turn to talk about another guy.
another guy?
The one we went to the funeral, John?
Oh. We got to be through the, well, I'll tell you, the first time we went to Mountain View, it was in '89, and there was a jam session going on in one of the buildings. And I walked in there, and I saw somebody sitting there with these ears sticking out, and I thought I was having a flashback or something. It looked just like Merle. It was John Travis. And as it turned out, we got to be friends with John and Evelyn, and we spent many nights at their house on our way to wherever we were going. Matter of fact, one morning we heard this noise outside, so I came out of the bedroom. There was John in his underwear playing my banjo.
It's quite a sight.
It was, yes. And he played it better than I did.
John was he would tell stories. Oh, and he ate those awful tongue sandwiches when we went to the restaurant. They knew what he was going to eat. So we became good friends, and John would tell stories about the family and growing up and how he had worked in the mine, but he didn't want to be there. And so anyway, we just had a good time. I want to tell you about Mr. Twitty, who's gone. And the first time we saw him was in this room, and we were sitting back there, and the contest was on, and we were so surprised when he came out in his shorts and his.
You're talking about
Evan, and he was so cute. You know, remember when he was chunky, girls, and he came out and he wore those shorts?
What I remember was the two winners that year were Parker Hastings and Evan Twitty. And the two of them, Parker was, so straight and perfect and everything.
He's so smooth, you know.
Evan came out in his shorts, sat down, crossed his legs, and just played the hell out of it.
He was. I miss Evan because he represented something to me for young men who are really, they just are finding themselves, putting themselves together, and I miss him.
John Travis had written a hymn which was recorded, and he claimed that he made more money for doing the liner notes than he ever made on royalties. But anyway, he said, if you'd like to do this song, go ahead and use it.
And we did. We came back and played his funeral.
I sit here just thinking the thoughts of a man, how my God in his glory holds all in his hands. How mighty is he, and I oh so small, how the great God of glory must love us all. Oh, may I know I'm acceptable. Oh, may I know I stand blameless. Thou art my strength and Redeemer. Thou art the God of the blessed. There's no speech or language where his voice is not heard. The cry of an eagle, the song of a bird. His light has gone out through all of the earth, and only the upright are sure of their worth. Oh, may I know I'm acceptable. Oh, may I know I stand blameless. Thou art my strength and Redeemer. Thou art the God of the blessed. Thou art the God of the blessed.
We should say also, we thank Buddy and Kay Bain from Tupelo, Mississippi, who brought us to Arkansas and then brought us here, and what fun we've had with them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al and Kathy Bain. The next person that I'm going to bring out here is someone that I heard Tom refer to. He said, when I need my Merle Travis fix, I pop in an Eddie Pennington recording. And in a minute, you're going to see why. I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Eddie Pennington, a treasure to all of us. He and Tom had a great friendship, and he can talk some more about that.
Too loud. Or is that the monitors? Yeah. I won't need much monitor because I'm going to sing something. I don't really care about hearing that. Yeah, I think it is, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, Paul Mosley. Paul can get a tone if anybody can get it, even for me. You know, I was at the service, and we had it at the graveside, and of course I was there. I sort of helped give contacts to funeral homes and different things like that, and I went over when they made arrangements at the funeral home with Jack, and a lot of you don't know it. I was a funeral director in Bomber for a long time, and so I guess you get sort of a hard shell on you on that part. You get used to do it, and you don't feel the stuff. Coming over this morning, Penny said, "Can you sing Guitar in the Window?" I said, "I don't know. I really never did." I told her, I said, Larry Kilgore could sing it because he never forgets anything. And so maybe he'll get up and do that. But she said, well, I'll see if I can find it on the phone. So she pulled it up. And turned out it was a show of Tom in Mountain View, Arkansas, 1989. And he come out on stage, and, he burned 2 or 3 up. He was playing his Langyon's guitar. I think he just went to the steel string Langyons. And then he done the guitar in the window, and I tell you what, it hit hard. He's been gone a good while now, but had a harder time this morning with it after hearing that. But I also realized, when he was talking and things, he started to rip off Blue Smoke. He said, "Where's old Eddie Pennington?" I remember that. That was never had a bigger compliment in my life, that Thom Bresh would know who I was and recognize me, and he burned that thing up, and it come to me, of course, Tom he's been a friend of mine for years and years. But at that time, I wasn't close enough. He was a hero, just like Chet and Merle and all those guys. And it come back to me. He was my hero. He was one, that I couldn't get enough of him. And so anyhow, he done some things, and I've always said this to everybody. He was the best entertainer I've ever saw going on stage. He would get an audience, even if they was leaving, he would put them back in their seat. And he said, where are you going, ma'am? I said, well, if you're that big a hurry, you ain't gonna make it. And he just, he would just, anything, if things got tough, he'd throw his arms back and do Fred Sanford. And you would think it was Fred Sanford. And, a lot of my understanding of Merle Travis come more through Tom when he would imitate, he would do his imitation of Merle and all, and say things for Merle. And, it made Merle alive again to me. And so we're all blessed that we got to know Thom Bresh. All of us are blessed. Bresh is like me. I've got faults. I don't tell my wife that I've got any, but she's liable to find out one of these days. But I've got a few faults now, and Bresh had a few faults. And but Bresh, deep down at heart, he's one of the kindest, nicest guys he could be. He could be one of the. He could be the totally other way, and that's he wouldn't be Bresh if he wasn't. But he was a special one, and we're all going to have a big hole forever that can't be filled. We got a lot of young, great ones coming on that it's going to keep everything going. We don't have to worry about it. It's going, and but there's always going to be a big hole that Thom Bresh left, and I know that Thom Bresh. I know he loved the Lord and all. I know he had a lot of faith. Because last time I talked to him was, down at Cass. He just had a test that they didn't want him to be around people, that thought radioactive stuff or something like that. So he wouldn't go inside, but was out on the porch at Cass, and he was talking about his sickness. And Larry gave him some hopes. Said, "Well, Tom, that's treatable if they told you that." And that's when Tom decided to be treated, and I guess he got better for a while there with that. But he was concerned. He said, "Gene, what I got to do to get buried there by Travis?" I said, "Well," just started talking about that. And Tom had always expressed, he wanted to be cremated. And I'm getting back to him being, loving the Lord and all, because, he always, he was a California person, and that was, cremation is common here now. But, years ago, mostly California people, you might have 1 or 2 cremations a year out of 200 when I worked in the funeral home. But anyhow, you know, Lane Brody, she's quite a religious person and studies things, and she told me, oh, you need to be buried. You need to be buried. So anyhow, you know, that's what it took for Tom. He wanted to be buried because, you know, he wanted to please the Lord. And so I'm not worried about it. They may have to give him a few lessons up there and explain some more things to him. The day at Merle Travis's memorial service, Tom spoke and all, and one of the things Tom prayed. And of course, Tom said, you know, well, Travis didn't want no preacher around here. And I can understand that. There's some preachers, you know, that you see that all they want is what comes in the money pot. And I expect that was Merle's idea of them. But Tom prayed. He said, Lord, you know, one of the things I remember him saying, said, if Merle's sitting out in the waiting room, sitting in an easy chair and all, please let him on in. And that's Tom. And of course, in this little show he did several Merle songs. Now, here's one that I used to do. I don't know if I can do it or not. Someone may have to help me, but it's a fun little song. And Tom did it like Merle, and I ended up doing it more like my own self. So you'll have to bear with it. It's called Long Lost John from Bowling Green. Nobody on the front row here named John, is it? Or the second row? Who's from Bowling Green here? Got a lucky day. Well, the ugliest fella that I ever seen was Long Lost John in Bowling Green. No hat on his head, no shoes on his feet, begging the women for his bread and meat. One woman said, John, what could he eat? Said, 49 biscuits and a ham of meat. He's long gone. He's long gone. He's long gone from Bowling Green. Lost John sitting on a railroad track. He's waiting for a freight train to come back. Freight train come along, skipping and flying. They called Lost John into London flying. He was long gone. He's long gone. He's long gone from Bowling Green. Now that's a Mose Rager picking it with my right hand. Did y'all see that? Here's he gets. I'd show you again, but actually I need to go practice it myself. I haven't got any fingernails. I'm playing with these finger picks, and I'm not quite got my touch. Now I'll see if I can do this and Easter rap a little verse here. Well, they ain't going down to Lost John's house. I'll tell you the reason why. He blowed his nose in the cornbread and he called it raisin pie. He was long gone. He's long gone. He's long gone from Bowling Green. Now, Lost John went in a woman's house, just walked right in as quiet as a mouse. Woman said, Lost John, get yourself a chair. I'm going to send the porter for a bucket of beer. Never mind the bucket and never mind the beer, because the hound's on my trail and I can't stay here. I got to get along. He's long gone. He's long gone from Bowling Green. Now you'd be surprised how many places you go and play and they don't know to applaud after you played something like that. Oh, thank you. Y'all getting better. Oh, ain't you a wonderful audience? Well, the hardest fella I ever seen was long lost John Bowling Green. His eyes was red and his gums was blue. Lord mercy, keep that fella in view. Gotta get along. Get long gone. He's long gone from Bowling Green. Now let's slow down to this serious verse. Now lost John went to the girly show, and he picked out a seat down on the front row. Well, the girls had come out, they done a little dance. They had to carry Johnny away in the ambulance, 'cause he's long gone. He's long gone. He's long lost John from Bowling Green. Thank you. That's Parker Hastings' capo here. I couldn't find mine this morning, and I had to have that for my delicate voice. And y'all be sure that I give it back to Parker. You know, we've lost a lot of great people in the last year. So, you know, this guitar was Tommy Owens' guitar, and Tommy, he left me a guitar, and Larry Kilgore one, and you know, it's something I really love. And we lost Lynn Clapp this summer, you know, the great rhythm player. That he was a great picker, but he played rhythm most of the time. He didn't take the credit being a picker. And of course, we lost Dave Stewart. You know, Joe asked me to say something about Dave Stewart Friday night, and you know, my mind nowadays is not very fast. I'm not very fast. Only time I'm fast is at a buffet table. Now I can hold my best with any of them, but Dave Stewart, you know, a lot of the things that we know about Merle and all, Dave Stewart helped bring those forward and finding old recordings and different things. And you know, this back before the days of the Bear record set, and you know, and then of course all the videos and stuff. He didn't have it much, and Dave searched it all out. And Dave was a great player, but he was such a gentleman. You hardly could get him to play because he was afraid he was going to, you know, take somebody else's place away from him. And he was a great person. Of course, Wayman Victory, we lost Wayman. Wayman was my favorite fan. When he was, you know, back when he was healthy, and all, I used to play, you know, at the Cass, or he would come up here some. No. But when I would play, if there wasn't a seat on the front, he would sit on the floor. And, you know, he just encouraged you, made you feel better. So I want to remember all those people. And nobody's done this, have they? I'm a Pilgrim this morning. Well, let's do it. And everybody knows it, so let's all sing it. And we'll sing it for all these people we've lost, and especially Tom. I'll pick a little round first, and we'll start it. I am a pilgrim, I don't hear you, and a stranger, traveling to, come on now, make them, this wearisome land. I've got a home in that yonder city, good Lord, and it's not, good Lordy, and it's not made by hand. I have a mother, sister and a brother who have gone on to that sweet home. But I'm determined to go and see them, good Lord, over on, good Lordy, over on that other shore. as I go down to the river of Jordan just to bathe my weary soul. If I could touch but just the hem of his garment, dear Lord, I believe, Lordy, I believe that it would make me whole. Now when I'm dead, laying in my coffin, and all of my friends all gather round, they can say that he's just laying there sleeping. Good Lord, sweet peace, Lordy, sweet peace, his soul been found. Now let's do it again. I am a pilgrim and a stranger traveling to this wearisome land. I'm determined to go and see them, good Lord, sweet peace, his soul been found. We love you, Bresh, and all you other people. We love all you people that come and support these things, and we love all the people that work so hard to make weekends like this possible. Thank you. Better unplug me before I do something drastic here.
We don't want to pop a. There we go.
Right. Thank you, Eddie. Wonderful, wonderful job. Our next performer is going to be coming out, and he'll talk a lot more about his affiliation with Tom as well. We're going to call out to the stage Mr. Pat Kirtley. And while Pat's making his way to the stage, one of the things that Eddie said, he was talking about, you know, Tom being good-hearted, and another side of Tom. I got to spend a good amount of time with Tom traveling for a couple years, and I got to see that directly. If you spend 9 hours in a car with Tom, you'll learn a lot about Tom. One of the things that I learned about Tom is that he could fly, because we almost flew to Louisiana, because from the time we left his home till the time we got out of the car for 9 hours while he was telling stories and so on, and I enjoyed every second of it. It was very entertaining, but where I'm going with that, he told funny stories, he told serious stories, but when Tom is in a one-on-one setting, or in that case it was my wife and I in the vehicle, you learn a lot more about a person like that. And he really opened up and was out of stage mode and was in, you know, here's how Tom really thinks. And I know there are a lot of people here that are the Wades sitting on the front that got to see that side of him as well. But he was fun. And the video camera stories that John Knowles was talking about, he was referring to his Osmo camera, of course, on that same trip where we flew most of the way in our vehicle. My wife was trying to get some sleep, and he'd be swinging that camera around. And in one instance, and the footage is somewhere, like John said, if you've ever gone on a trip with Tom, you'll know this. So he had already trained me for this. We crossed over into Louisiana. I honked the horn 3 times, and Tom yells, "Louisiana!" with the camera in her face, and she raises up and hits her head on it. So as you travel home, if you're from another state, to pay your own tribute to Tom, when you cross that state line, honk your horn 3 times and yell that state. He made me turn around and go back whenever before I did it correctly once. So, but it was a fun time. We got to spend a lot of time together in that sense, and just, you know, everyone that's been with him has experienced some of that. And one of those people is Mr. Pat Kirtley.
Hey, so what we're talking about here is a lifetime. You know, it's you can't talk about all of it. It's a lifetime. But I'd like to play you a tune first. And this is a tune that means a lot to me. It meant a lot to Thom Bresh, and he told me that he loved my arrangement of it, which was different than everybody else's. And I'll just play that now. It's 16 tons. Well, that tune means a lot to me, and it means a lot to people who live here in Muhlenberg County. So I met Thom Bresh first, I think it was about 1997, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky. And he and Lane Brody were doing a concert at the Louisville Gardens, and they were with somebody else. It was several people on the bill. And I had been called up by Tuck Razor. How many of you all know Tuck Razor and remember him? I hope we all do. I didn't hear very many cheerings there. We need to remember him and the Kentucky Thumbpickers, because through that is how I met Thom Bresh. And we were all going down to his concert that night, and we were all assembled in cars and went on down there, and we were late, and they wouldn't let us in. And, they couldn't even buy a ticket. The ticket box was closed. You couldn't get in. All the doors were locked. We tried them. And there was something going on in there that was great. And so when it finished and Tom came out and saw all of us, he said, we're all going to go out and eat. And I got introduced to the Thom Bresh eating experience. And if you know, and if you don't, you don't. And so we went out to a restaurant somewhere in Louisville, and it was a grand gala, and it took like 3 hours, and it was okay because we had a great time. And that's when I met him, and we became friends like instantly. And through the years after that, we were together so many times, and I have so many good memories. And here's one of them: is we were in France, and a bunch of us from the States were there. There was an assembly of some great artists that in 1991, I think, in Issoudun, France. And Mark, you were there. And Mark Pritchard was part of the entourage who was being given the keys to the city of Issoudun by the mayor of Issoudun. And it was, grand. They do that kind of stuff over there. We don't do that stuff here. But we were in this ceremony, and so Tom and I were back in the back of the room talking about Ampex tape recorders. And we were oblivious, it seems to me, to the proceedings that were going on, all this holy stuff, and here's the key, and, you know, blah, blah, blah in French and all this stuff. And he said, now, you know, they have a Model 400 back in the backstage at Mountain View, Arkansas that belonged to Grandpa Jones. And Merle recorded on that recorder, but really it wasn't any good because the way the tape path worked is the capstan was on the wrong side of the tape heads. And this was our conversations. We had many, many of them. And I remember when I would have conversations with Buster Jones, it would be about construction. It would be about the best way to build a deck and put supports up if it's more than 4 feet off the ground. And, you know, that's what Buster was about. And people thought they were just guitar players. And there was just so much more. And so Tom, I don't have stories to tell because all I have is moments. I've got so many moments with him that I'll never forget. The moment when he told me about his eye condition that he had, which he had a cataract, starting in one eye, and then he had a cataract in the other eye, but it was in this one first and worse. And it was a cataract that all the doctors told him was inoperable, so that he was going to be blind, and he couldn't take that. He couldn't stand for that. And he found a doctor, I think it was a Japanese doctor, who eventually operated on his eye and removed the cataract when no other doctor would touch it. They said, you can't do that. You can't do this operation. It's gone too far. There's too much there, and we can't deal with it. And this doctor fixed it for him. And he was so happy about that, and he told me every detail of the operation. So that's about all I've got to say, but we want to remember him. We want to remember Evan Twitty. We want to remember Tuck Razor. We want to remember all of these lovely people that made us be part of the musician that we are. So, thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Pat. This is the time that I am going to, because I know there are some people who may like to say some things about Tom, and I want to give people an opportunity to do that. If there's anyone who would like to come to the stage and say something, or if you would like me to bring a cordless mic to you, or if you would just like to stand up and say it, you're welcome to. I will encourage that we use our words efficiently, but I want you to be able to say what you want to say at the same time. So if there's anyone, either stand up, come out. Looks like there's someone raring to come through the curtain right now, of course. Hey, come on out.
Oh, stay here.
This is, I'm going to go ahead and say, this is where I'm supposed to go take a break, and you're keeping me out here.
No, that's part of my story. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Herring. I was, in fact, I have a story about that too, but I was I was officially Thom Bresh's last manager. And that was Johnny Hyland's fault. Three of us were out to lunch, and Johnny said to Bresh, you know, you really need somebody to take care of the things that you do because you're terrible at it. And he said, why don't you hire John, because he's my manager. I was Johnny Hyland's manager at the time. And so Bresh said, okay. So we're standing out in the sidewalk, and we shook hands, and that was it. So and unfortunately, that was right before COVID, and that was right before cancer. So we tried to do a whole lot of things. We had a tour planned. We had things going on, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. But just for the gruff old guy that he was a joy to work with. And I got to add to Joe's story about Louisiana, because I took a trip to Louisiana with Bresh too. And I guess you were driving though, when you went to Louisiana?
Yes.
Okay. When I went to Louisiana with Bresh was driving, and he still did this. And he still took video of me sitting in the passenger seat while he was driving at 80 miles an hour, shouting out, Louisiana, when we got to Louisiana. And of course, Tennessee when we got to Tennessee. But that was, we had to go through Alabama or Mississippi, or would we have to go through?
Well, whenever you went down from Tom's, you'd go through Alabama. And
yeah, go through Alabama. Yes. So we shouted out every state, and that was just.
Alabama's where I had to turn around because I missed it. So.
Yeah, no, we we caught it, but he still, the whole trip, I don't know if he held the steering wheel at 75 miles an hour the whole time, doing this. One reason I came out, and I have 7,000 other Bresh stories that I could tell, but Andy Ellis, I don't know if you're familiar with Andy Ellis, legendary guitar journalist. He was with Guitar Player magazine, Premier Guitar magazine. We did a radio show for about 5 years, from 2008 to 2013, where we interviewed great guitarists about their new record and all that stuff. We did over 150 of them, and it was in 50 states and over 150 countries, and we were really proud of it. And Andy recently retired from Premier Guitar, and we've been talking about a new project for the last couple of years. It's going to be the Guitar Show with Andy Ellis Legends series. And in this show, we're going to talk about life stories of great, great guitarists, and some of the people that were here today and over the weekend are going to be part of it. And the show starts on Thursday with Jack Pearson, for those of you that know him. We're talking about his life. We've already done Muriel Anderson. We're going to do Charlie McCoy. Dr.John Knowles, of course, is going to be on a future show. But in February, in honor of Bresh's birthday, we're going to do a tribute show to Bresh. And a lot of it is going to be stories. If you have a particular story about Bresh, or if you can recite one of Bresh's stories, we want you to come up and do that here. We're also going to have a phone number to call and leave a message with your story. We're going to include it in the show. Just leave your name and what your story is. And if you're in Nashville, I'll be able to come out and record you and do that, or we can get you on the phone. But we'd love to have your stories about Bresh. And the third week, I think it's the third week in February when his birthday was, we're going to be putting that out on Spotify on the podcast. So number one, listen on Tuesday to the Jack Pearson, and every other Tuesday is a brand new one. But end of February is going to be the Thom Bresh tribute. So please give a listen to that. So if anybody wants to come up, like Joe said, anybody wants to come up and tell a Bresh story, please do that, because we're recording it, and it could be on the show. Thanks.
Thank you, John. We have a few people who would like to say some things, and I have someone who's come over. You want to come on stage? You just want the mic, or what? You were waiting patiently over there, and since you're outnumbered over here, I'm going to let you go ahead and go now. So.
Well, I would feel really privileged to go before these gentlemen. Yes, I'm Carol Garvin, and my wife and I are here from Scottsdale, Arizona, with our son. First time they've been here. But with the years that Tom was in Scottsdale, and with Noki Edwards as well, it seemed like a couple of times a week we were always going somewhere, doing something, and I spent a lot of time with Tom, and there's no way you could ever hear all of his stories, but I swear we covered most of them, and different versions, right? But he was with us staying with us, and now the Chet tune that Tom did is, what is that tune that Happy Again, right? And he's up early in the morning, and he's scruffy and hasn't combed his hair or anything, and I had a little Martin guitar, and I said, Tom, I said, tell me what you think of this little guitar, So he grabs it and he starts playing, Happy Again. I said, wait, I've got to get a video camera. So typical me, right? I get the video camera out, and he says, I haven't even taken a shower or anything. I said, well, you just look like Albert Einstein, and so with his hair all out, and he was scrubbing his head. He says, okay, this is Tommy Bresh doing Happy Again. And then he went and edited it for me. So I have a specific clip of this happening, and it's priceless. But too many other stories to tell, but love Tom. Oh, and then my wife and Tom went to the same elementary school in Reseda. So we were his California connection. And so I'll jokingly say we spoke a different language. My father-in-law, my wife's dad, knew Bud Bresh, but not well, knew of him, and because they were in radio and television together. But that's about it.
All right, so we're the Bresh's team doctors. My name's Larry Kilgore. I'm a physician and part-time guitar player, and everybody knows Dr. Pritchard. So we thought we'd come represent Tom's relationship to us. Yeah, I had lots and lots of conversations with Tom through the years. I met Tom at Mountain View, and I'd seen a video of him from Dave Stewart. It's a mixed blessing for me, but I have kind of a photographic memory, and so everything I see and hear, I'm like a sponge around Tom. And so I said, there is somebody I can learn how to play Merle Travis's music from, because I'm going to get him on video and see his videos. Merle I could see on television, and we had those records, we could lift the needle on when I was a kid and trying to learn to play like Merle. And nobody would show you anything. There was no tab. There was no music. I can't read anyway, if there was music. And so there was Bresh with that video camera and all of the things that he played. He played Merle's tunes. He could play them exactly right. But he was really kind to our family. We had a lot of conversations about his medical conditions, his eye, and a number of other things I can't disclose because of HIPAA, right? But he was looking for hope, I think, when he got his throat cancer, and so we think I do oncology, and I think we had some of that. But Bresh was not going to take any advice, standing up or sitting down. He had his own mind made up about a lot of stuff. He was so kind to our kids. My kids were like another family for him, especially my daughter. So she sang with him when she was about that tall, and more recently she was his attorney in the last year or so of his unofficial attorney. He wasn't going to have an attorney. And I said, Lauren, she said, I'm going to help him, I said, he needs to get his affairs in order, because he's got a cancer diagnosis. And he was recurring, and he wasn't doing that great. And so she said, well, I'll go over there and help him, And I said, he's not going to like what you have to say, and he's not going to agree necessarily with anything that you recommend. But they had a great relationship there at the end. One funny story about Bresh, and I'll let Mark tell one. We were in California, of all things. We were out at Kirk Sands' shop in Laguna Beach, and I get a call from Tom. We live in Knoxville. Tom's in Knoxville. And he's driving through or whatever. He stopped to get something to eat. He had that black car he had. I don't know what he called it. Edgar. Yeah, thank you. I remember. So he sends me a picture, and the front wheels are locked this way. He's in the parking lot somewhere. He said, Doc, I need you to come help me. I can't straighten my car out. My wheels won't turn. And so I said, I'm in California. And, he said, well, you still got to help me. I said, well, my son Joe's over at my house. So anyway, I called Joe. He was about, 18, 19 years old. He's real shy. My youngest son's pretty shy. So he goes and finds Tom, puts him in the car. And the next thing I know, we're getting a video of Joe driving Bresh, to get the wrecker and all that kind of stuff. And Joe's real shy. But anyway, he got his car towed in and fixed and so forth and so on. But anyway, Mark, what you got to say about Tom?
When Jim Farron founded the society in 1983, it was about 2 years later, we had the first convention in 85, and we asked Chet some suggestions for who should play. And one of his first suggestions without hesitation was, you got to get this guy named Thom Bresh, because he's an entertainer and a great player, and you got to do it. And we did, and he was there from the beginning and until the end also. So that was straight from Chet. Nobody knew any other details except this was a great guy and a great player, and the rest is you all know. And then finally, you may not realize it, but Tom was a linguist. And he may have been from California, but he spoke Southern too. And Pat will remember in France, the French guys were all around, and we went to a restaurant, and we had a little alcove where we were all sitting. And I don't remember how it went that way, but somehow he may have said something and they didn't understand him, and I believe it involved the word gonna, and somebody said, what is these gonna? And he said, well, it goes like this: I ain't gonna, you ain't gonna, he ain't gonna, we ain't gonna, ain't nobody gonna. And so they learned how to conjugate gonna. They didn't know what it was, but they could conjugate it.
All right, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lena Page, and I'm Tom's cousin. I did not get to meet him until 2011, 2010, because I was raised in Washington State. But my car broke down in Hendersonville, Tennessee, and I was talking to this gentleman that was fixing my car, and I said, yeah, apparently I'm related to Thom Bresh. And he goes, I know Tom. I'm going to call him. And I'm like, really? Okay. So he got on his phone and he called him up and he said, hey, Tom, I got this girl here. She says she's your cousin. He said, I'll be right down. So he got in the car, he came down, he brought the camera and put it right in my face and he said, oh yeah, you're a Travis. You're a Travis. And so we became very fast friends, and I know the hangry side of him, and definitely would say, you know what? I think you're hangry. I think we should go get some margaritas. Let's go. And so we'd get in the car and, yep, don't ride with him if you're a little shy of riding in road trips. I just never would go with him after that. But anyway, he just was such a sweetheart. So just fell in love with him so much, and we hung out, and his cat, and, you know. But I called him one day and I said, hey, Kent Wells is going to produce my album, and I said, I'd really love for you to be on one of my songs. It's called Bob Dylan. He goes, well, I like the title, but I'm not going to play on it. And I said, well, dang it, I'm just really disappointed. So I told Kent Wells, I said, he's not going to play on it. And he said, tell him I'll write in 8 bars for him to play, just 8 bars for him to play on this song, if he'll do it. And so I called Tom back up and I said, Tom, Kent Wells said that he will write in 8 full bars for you to play on if you'll just play on it. And he said, well, send it to me and I'll listen to it, but I'm not going to guarantee anything. I said, okay, that's fine. So I sent it to him, and I get a call from him. I thought, oh, please, just say you'll play on it, you know. And he said, well, I've decided I'm going to play the shit out of this thing. And I said, yes, that's awesome. I'm so happy. So I called Kent Wells, and he started crying on the phone. He was so excited. And the day we brought him in the studio, he sat there and played My Dog Jesus, and I got some good recording of him doing that, and got some good recording of him playing on my album, and he really made the song. It's so much fun, and people love it. But that was my Thom Bresh story. He did text me on May 9th, and he said, I need some spaghetti bolognese. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, he goes, I want you to come over and make it for me. I said, well, I had pneumonia, so I said, I would love to. I just, I don't even know how to pronounce it. So I'm going to have to look it up. But that was the last time we texted and talked, and I was super bummed that I had pneumonia and I couldn't make it to make his spaghetti for him, so I will do that. Thank you.
Well, I was going to tell a typical Bresh story, but before I do, I was talking to John and Eddie backstage. And, of course, we started coming here. Everybody falls in love with Tom, and his talents were unbelievable. So I was talking to him one day, and he said, you know how this all got started? I said, no. And he said he got out a picture, and it was 12 or 14 or something. It was a nice picture, and it showed Tom. Tom was about this tall, and Merle was playing on stage before audience. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that same picture and maybe heard the same story. He said, this is how it got started. He said, my dad took me to hear Merle, and he said, I was sitting there, and he said, I couldn't help it. I said, I just walked up to the stage in front of the whole crowd. He said, I stood, and he had a picture, the back of Tom, and he was just fascinated by the guitar. And he said, I stood there the whole time, and he said, from that moment on, I couldn't get that sound off my mind. And he said, I was determined. I guess he was 3 or 4 years old. I don't know how old he was. But he said, from that moment on, that's where it started, right there and standing in front of that stage in front of the whole audience. I just stood and stared at it. So Tom said, That was it, and from that day on, I've been playing ever since. And some people said they had pictures of a guitar when he was about 4 years old, trying to play some chords and things on stage with Merle. But anyway, the story I want to tell is typical Bresh. As some of you folks know, I was judge executive for a while, and one year I was the president of the Kentucky Association. We had a conference each year, and about 500 people attended it. And so I was in charge of it, and so I said, I want the entertainment, and I thought this is a chance to share Muhlenberg County's sound with the rest of Kentucky. So I thought, what better person than Bresh? So I called Bresh up, and I said, can you come play at this conference for us? And it's a real formal conference and everything. He said, yeah, I'll do it. So anyway, he comes up, and so before it starts, our guest of honor was Governor Fletcher. And most of you know Governor Fletcher, he was also a minister. So I get Tom off to the side, and I say, now, Tom, our guest of honor is a minister, so the risque stuff, you need to keep it down a little bit, because you know Tom, how you get wound up. So anyway, so after the dinners, I introduced to Tom, here's our guest, Kentucky Thumbpicking. I want all of y'all to hear the sound and this sound, and I was just hoping to spread. That's when it was getting started, Eddie. So anyway, so Tom gets up, and I was sitting on the podium with the governor and Miss Fletcher, and Tom, the first thing comes out of his mouth was just very risque, almost whatever. You know Tom, how he was. He just went on and on. I thought, oh, man, I feel like crawling under the table. So finally, I told the governor and first lady, I said, I am so sorry that the entertainment's saying what he's saying, you know. And she said, that's okay, don't worry about it. So after the show, I go down, I go to Tom and said, Tom, what did I tell you? I said, he's a minister, and you can't do this risque stuff up here. Why did you do it? He said, you told me I couldn't. That was it. So he said, if you hadn't told me as a minister, I wouldn't have done it, but you told me I couldn't, and I'm going to do it. So that's typical Tom. So anyway, that's my Tom stories. Thank you.
It's me again. Rodney just made me think of a story that I think you guys would like. We did, for a number of years, we did a monthly lunch in Nashville. We called it Gluttony because we did it at a Chinese restaurant and everybody ate till they were sick. And Bresh was one of the first. We had over 25 guitar players that came out to this thing and other music people every month. And I think Bresh was number 4 when we started. I started with a songwriter named Rob Wolf, and we started and then just grew and grew and grew from there. But we were at our normal Chinese restaurant on Nolensville Road in Nashville, and we would do it there every month. And then we grew, and Bresh would of course hold court and tell all of his stories every month. Well, just like Rodney was talking about, he would tell the most risque stories in the middle of this family-friendly restaurant. They had to move us, and as soon as we'd show up every month, they'd move us to the back room where nobody was, the private room. They'd open up the gates and send us all back there because they didn't want Bresh telling his story in the main room, which he did every month. Every month he was there, and we haven't started it up again since COVID, but we're about to, and there's going to be a big hole in our festivities because there's no Bresh stories. So, but it was hilarious, and if any of you, I don't think anybody here went to it, but it was a blast. So thanks.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone else for the great stories. And I know Tom would have very much enjoyed this. And this fella that's coming out behind me now spent a good amount of time with Tom, and he was one of the ones that Tom was talking about. I love him, but I'm gonna let him talk a little bit more about his time with Tom and so on. But we were talking about these younger players who have been influenced by different people and who take their music on and so on. Parker Hastings.
All right. I'm going to tell a few stories and play a couple tunes for Tom. The first time I met him, I was about 13 years old or so. And I'll never forget the first time I met him because he said, "Hi, my name's Thom Bresh." And the H is silent like the P in pool. And it took me a second to get exactly that reaction. Kind of the after laugh. But no, Tom, he was just a sweetheart of a person if you knew him, and he'd do anything for you. And we struck a friendship pretty much instantly. And through the years, I got the chance to play different shows with him and, play in Mountain View, Arkansas with him. And we did the Wood Songs old time radio show, I remember one time. And I was working on this original song, and we were backstage, and I was with Eddie Pennington, Thom Bresh, and myself. And I was working on this little song that I said, "Hey, Tom, listen to this and let me know what you think." And he's like, "Well, that's good." He said, "What are you calling it?" And it took me a second, and I was just rattled this off the top of my head. So I'm calling this Breshin' Around, just to be funny. And he said, No. It needs to be Bresh and Beyond. So that stuck with me. And I ended up recording this in 2017 and put it on my Breezing Through Life album and dedicated this one to Tom. So here's Bresh and Beyond. Thank you. Well, it wasn't until a few years later when I saw Tom and he handed me a CD and he said, "This is just a new recording I've been working on." And he's like, "I recorded your song on it." I said, "Okay. Where's my check, Tom?" No. But aside of the fact that Tom could make you laugh, he could also make you cry with his stories, either tears of sadness or tears of laughter. I can't tell you how many times I was around him and I was in tears from laughing so much. But he did have a very sensitive, soft side to him, and this is a song that I learned this past summer and played at the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society convention when we did a tribute to Tom, and I actually had the Endless Road Strings play this song with me. And Tom tells the story of he was coming home late from a gig one night. This was back in the 90s, and he turned on the TV, and all he saw on the news was the headlines of Princess Diana had been killed. And he said it was a rainy night, and he sat there and he wrote this song. It's called Diana. So I thought I'd play that for you now. I don't have the Endless Road Strings to back me up, but this is one of my favorites. Tom always said Diana, she wasn't bad looking for an English lady. You know, also, too, being 13 years old and meeting Tom Bresh, my parents weren't too sure about letting me hang around him. And, yeah, they figured out pretty quick, though, that he was all right. In fact, I remember one of the times I introduced him to one of my dad's sisters. Her name was I call her Aunt Becky, and I said, "Hey, Tom, I want you to meet, this is Aunt Becky," and he goes, "Oh. Well, hi, Aunt Becky. I'm Uncle Tom." And I remember, too, it was after he had eye surgery, and he said, "What color eyes do you like?" He's like, "I've got one of each, a blue one, and I've got one blue and one brown, whatever color you like." But some of the things I picked up from Tom, too, were, as Eddie had mentioned earlier, he had an ear for hearing voices and doing impressions of other people, whether they were actors or presidents or just characters in TV shows. I mean, there was one time I had dinner with Tom, and he was a big Jimmy Stewart fan. And he told me the story that Jimmy told once on the Johnny Carson show. He said, Mary had a pocket watch. She swallowed it one day. The doctor gave her castor oil to pass the time away. The castor oil, it didn't work. The time, it didn't pass. So if you want to know what time it is, you better look up Mary's uncle, because he's got a pocket watch too. I mean, just every little voice. Well, go, surprise, surprise, surprise. He just knew all those voices and could do them perfectly. And I'm going to do one more song, and then I'm going to have everybody come out, and we're going to do a little See You in My Dreams together in honor of Tom. A little send-off for him. But before that, I want to leave you with one of Tom's more humorous songs. And this isn't one that he wrote, but a friend of his wrote. And I just love this song the minute I heard it. And it made me laugh. And granted, 14 years old, these lyrics didn't really sink in, but about 8 years later, they kind of finally do. This is called the Fly Song. He'd say, "This sounds like a whaling song." Was my first time singing in a bar room, and I want to do the songs they love to hear. So before I started picking, I went into that room where little boys go when they've been drinking beer. Then I came out and I stepped into the spotlight. I picked up my guitar and tried to sing. I was looking at the people, and they were looking back at me, kind of like now, but no one was doing anything. Well, the first song that I sang was fast and lively. No one moved except the man at table 3. And he was writing down some words upon his napkin. And the waitress giggled when she handed it to me. It said, "Do you know your fly is standing open? Do you know your zipper is undone?" Just as you'd guessed, those were my first 2 requests. And I'll be honest with you, I never heard of either one. Well, I read it to the crowd and they applauded long and loud. I broke out in a sweat of desperation. And I don't know why or how, but I stood up to take a bow, and I received my first standing ovation. I was proud of it too. Wish my mom was there to see it. Well, I sat back down and tried to make some music when the waitress brought another note to me. And though her face was turning red, she just snickered and said, It's from that guy again over there at table number 3. I said, oh good, well let's open it up and see. It said, do you know your horse ain't in the stable? Do you know your barn door ain't been closed? And I just couldn't help but wonder, where's he hearing all these stupid songs? One of those Nashville hat singers, I suppose. Then I looked down at the bottom of his napkin, and I started feeling better right away. After all those songs about horses, barns, and stables, well, I finally found a song that I could play. I said, this man must be a fan of the Beatles, 'cause the song he underlined I'd like to do. And they went into a rage as I stood there on the stage, singing, P.S. I love you. You, you, you. All right, I'm gonna have a little help from my friends playing this last song. Come on out, guys.
It's going to be the whole team here, isn't it? We're going to do one of Tom's favorites, and I think he would like it if I played an intro with a few out-of-town chords in it, you know, so I'll do that and then we'll kick us off, all right? Are we all there? What did you say? Got us all? Okay, here we go. Oh, okay, over this way? Like this?
Well, we got to do one more, but in the words of Tom, that's all I got. We'll do it in E flat.
Well, we started together and we ended together, so I think we've got it.
That's as good as it gets.
That's right. Anyone else have anything else they want to say? Any of y'all? I think when you close with those two songs, it's all been said. So I want to thank you. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And I don't think any of us could have asked for that to have been a more appropriate tribute to our friend Thom Bresh. So we got you down here, buddy. Thank you all.